Today we're beginning our exploration together of chapter 38 of Tanya. This chapter is all about kavana. It's all about exploring the power of intention. It's also known as one of the more complicated, or I guess intricate chapters of Tanya that we'll be exploring together. So before going into the major importance of intention, the Alter Rebbe first reestablishes what we have already gone through in chapter 37, which is the power of action, how action is ultimately the main thing. So look at that. Let's look at that for a moment. So the halakha rules accordingly that meditation is not valid in lieu of verbal articulation. Meaning, if a person says Shema Yisrael with all of his mind and all of his heart and the full force of concentration and intention, and he just literally cleaving to God in his heart and in his soul, but he did not say the words Shema Yisrael out loud, he has not fulfilled his obligation of saying Shema Yisrael. It needs to be articulated orally in order to fulfill this mitzvah. And the same is with the blessings of grace after meals and other blessings which are ordained by our sages, by our rabbis. And so that shows us the heightened importance of actually doing the mitzvah, of actually articulating the words. So in this example, prayer is, I guess, the most spiritual of the physical mitzvahs in that sense, meaning it's not something that's engaging the realm of action. We're engaging the realm of speech and thought. But so too, we've already established that speech is considered action. And so therefore, even if something's action is only speech, it cannot be without any action for one of the mitzvahs to be fulfilled. It needs to have that element of action involved. So this begs the question, why is action so important? So yes, we've already covered it, but we're re-establishing it, which is going to help us understand later in this chapter the true power of intention. So why is action important? Because it builds a home for Hashem through the physical actions, through physical mitzvahs that we do of wrapping tefillin and lighting our Shabbos candles and the physical things that we do in this world to serve God, like cooking your food for Shabbos and cleaning your home for Shabbos, and the actual work of going to knock on your neighbor's door to check in with them or bring their Purim gift or whatever it is, the physical acts of the mitzvah, that literally builds the physical home for God in this world. That's what is inviting God into this world. So now as we're shifting into the aspect of kavana, of intention, the question is, why is kavana important? And you guessed it, it's the exact same answer. Because it's building a home for Hashem. Physical mitzvahs are important because they build a home for Hashem. And kavana is important, intention is important because that builds a home for Hashem. They're part of the same mission. They're different dimensions. The way, the head and the limbs are different parts of the body, but they're still part of the same body. They're still intimately connected with God's will. They're just different expressions of God's will, right? Physical action of a mitzvah versus the intention behind it. They're expressed differently, but they're still part of the same will, which is to have a home in this world. So a person could build a home for God, but the lights are off. And the Rebbe says, God forbid, someone could build a home, but the home is dark. And so when we don't do mitzvahs with consciousness, with intention, it's not revealed that it's a home for Hashem. It's still in that state of, in a way, concealment, that this is really for Hashem, because my consciousness is not present and not aware that that's what's happening in this moment, is I'm becoming a home for Hashem. Either way, I'm building a home for Hashem, whether or not I had intention. But it's a dark home, right? It's not, I don't have that consciousness that I'm becoming a home for Hashem, and therefore it's lacking. And so kavana is what lights up the home that we're building for Hashem through our physical mitzvah actions. So kavana turns the light on and reveals within one's consciousness the unique attachment to God that they have during the time performing the mitzvah. Helps one appreciate the divine intimacy in that moment. Helps one really truly appreciate, wow, right now as I'm saying Shema Yisrael, Shem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, I'm one with my source. Or as, you're cooking for Shabbos, the intent of wow, this is for the mitzvah of Shabbos. I'm garbed in God's endless light right now. Every part of me that's involved in this chopping and the cooking. So in that moment, it lights up within ourselves the consciousness, I'm really building a home for Hashem. And so that brings the warmth, it brings the connection, it brings the intimacy. So if one said the words, but they didn't have intention when saying certain things, the first paragraph of Shema, or the first blessings of the Amidah, they're actually required to repeat them. That being said, all other blessings, if a person after the fact didn't have intention, they do not need to go back and repeat themselves. So this is only for the first paragraph of Shema and the first paragraph of the Amidah. A person needs to have conscious intent, they need to have kavana in order for them to fulfill the mitzvah. So of course we want to have the conscious intent and kavana with all mitzvahs, but the question is whether or not I fulfilled my halachic requirement. It is written in Tractate Brachot, until the end of the first verse of Shema, the mitzvah is one of concentration. From here on, the mitzvah consists of recitation, and one is to fulfill his obligation even if he did not concentrate. So that's where we're learning this halakha, that the mitzvah is so, the action of the mitzvah is so tied up with the power of intention with that first verse that a person is actually not fulfilling their obligation unless they had intention when saying the first paragraph of Shema, which is Shema Yisrael, Shem Elokeinu Shem Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Ved, and then starting V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, which a person can find in any Hebrew siddur. Similarly, the act of saying words is overall more important than thought, right? We're saying that the main thing is the action of speech, because even if I didn't have intention, in most cases, I fulfilled my requirement. Versus if I had a ton of intention, I was just like tripping out on godliness over here. I was falling in love with God, and yet I didn't say the words, I didn't fulfill the requirement. So why is this? Because the godly soul did not come into this world to perfect itself. We've already established that in chapter 37. Rather, the godly soul is here on a mission, it's here on shluchus with the body and the animal soul to draw godly light onto it. And so even if I didn't have the intent, which is much more of a neshama conscious experience, but I did the action, therefore I fulfilled my shlichus. I fulfilled my mission. I got my body, my animal soul involved and enwrapped in godly light. And therefore, on the baseline, mission accomplished. So how exactly is this accomplished, right? How is the animal soul and the body so affected through these words of prayer? This is accomplished by means of the letters of speech, which the soul utters by means of the 5 organs of verbal articulation, and through the mitzvah of action, which the soul performs by means of the other body's organs. So it's really about involving the body in this godly experience through the mitzvah. Thank you for taking the time to explore today's Tanya together.